I'm Alex Zaal. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. We're very excited to bring to you some insights and instruction on how to deploy webhooks. With me, I've got Juan Porta. He is our lead micro app developer, and he will be walking you through this demonstration. So what is a webhook? So one of the primary areas, if you think about micro apps, before the webhook capability was implemented, they were very much focused on a pulled system that was dependent on syncs. And so when you're monitoring for events in any of the systems of record that you might connect to, you were limited to having to wait on whatever that sync schedule is before the users were notified that an event had occurred. So a big difference here is that webhooks with that implementation, and they're sometimes called web callback or HTTP push API, you're able to actually receive a notification from the system of record when the event occurs. And that allows you to take action of that on that event in the micro app environment. It's really helpful for places where you may not necessarily want to be syncing constantly to have a close to real-time visibility of the system of record. And when that system of record supports it, it allows the system of record to let you know that something has happened that you need to take action on. Very good capability. And again, the big driver there is to notify the user of something as close to when it happens rather than having to wait for the sync. So what we're going to demo for you today is we're going to walk through building a webhook integration in Wrike. We're going to show you the Wrike implementation that we've got today. It's a micro app environment that we've built out to seamlessly integrate with Wrike's capabilities as micro apps. So workspace users can actually get to Wrike and do things in Wrike just inside their workspace. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to leverage Wrike's webhook capability and integrate it into this micro app solution that we've got. And so this will allow us to get notifications right away. So for this use case, we're actually going to show you, we're going to set up a webhook integration that actually monitors for attachments. In this demonstration, again, we're going to go step by step on how to configure the webhook. Whenever you build a webhook integration, there's some work that you have to do in the system of record, and then there's some work that you have to do in Citrix. So we're going to walk you through how to take a look at the documentation of the system of record, Wrike in this case, and identify what all needs to be done on the right side of the fence to turn on the event push. And then we're also going to let you know how to configure Citrix so that it is listening for that push. And then we're going to walk through a quick example of an implementation where we actually create a page that lets you get the details of it, and we create a notification based on the webhook events. So really looking forward to you learning about this, and we're always available if you have any questions. All right, and so now we'll let Juan kind of walk us through how to configure webhooks with Wrike as the system of record.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alex. This is the Wrike homepage where the user can see all of the tasks and campaigns. And the thing we are trying to accomplish here is to create a webhook to notify us when a new attachment is set to any of the tasks of this specific campaign. We are going to use the SPIF campaign for Northeast. And for that, we are going to use the developer documentation for Wrike. We are going to use our integration, and also we are going to use Postman as an application to do our API calls. Going to the documentation first, we go to the authorization part. Here it says that we need to do an initial setup to configure an endpoint for us. Right here we can go to the app console and basically give the API a name. We'll call it webhook and click create. There, Wrike will create for us a client ID and a client secret automatically. We need to save both of them for our Postman calls. And also we need to add two URLs for the redirect URI. These are for Postman, just for the Postman authorization part to work. And click saved, and we are good on the Wrike API creation. Going back on the authorization part, we need to follow this guide. After we got our client ID and client secret, we are going to use them to request an authorization token or using Postman. So on Postman, you are going to follow this guide, input the authorization URL and the token URL. Also your client ID and client secret, and request a new token. When you request a new token, Postman will display a login page from Wrike. You are going to log in with your email and password. If that's login is successful, you will get an authorization token. That authorization token will be used on every Postman call, every API call from there. Then we'll go to the webhook page on the documentation. Here we can see that webhooks can be created for folders, spaces, and etc. For folders, that is the thing we want to accomplish here. We need three things. We need a folder ID, and we need hook URL. That will be the URL that the webhook will be pointing to, the URL that will receive all of the data once the event is triggered. And obviously we want to give it an event for that. On this same page, we can find all of the events that can trigger a notification or a webhook in Wrike. For example, a new task is created, a task was deleted, the title was changed. For our demo, we are going to use attachment added because we want to notify our micro app to when a new task, a new attachment is added to the task. So
on these types of implementations, do you see a lot of variety in the way that different companies implement webhooks for their applications?
Well, the variety comes on the way the webhook is created. For example, some apps use like a backend, more intuitive way to construct it. Wrike builds it with Postman, not exactly Postman, but an application where you can do API calls. But the basics are that you need three things. You need the webhook URL, the redirect URL, that means an URL where the webhook will be pointing to, and you need an event to trigger that webhook. Also, you will need maybe a security token, but we are not going to use the security token here.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as I was mentioning, we are going to use folder ID. So we are going to also use the API reference method from Wrike to grab that specific folder ID using this specific function. And for that function, we are going to create a get call. using an endpoint and a permalink query string. Said that, let's go to Postman and create a webhook. As I said, first you create a collection, and in that collection you will need to do an authorization. I already did that over here, so I don't have to do it this time. But after you completed that authorization, you will receive an authorization token, and you can start building your Postman calls. We are going to start with building our request for the folders. For example, let's say get folders, and we will do a get call to this specific endpoint. And we are going to add a query string with the permalink. The permalink, you will grab it from Wrike. You can right click on the folder name and copy the permalink and just paste it. And we can click send. With that, Wrike will answer us with the information about the folder. And here is the ID we need. After that, we can create the other endpoint, that is the post call to create a webhook. This will be create webhook, will be a post call, and it will be directed to this URL. As you can see,
these steps are documented for you in the documentation of Wrike, and you would just follow the documentation in any system based on how they've implemented configuring a webhook, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. This information is all on the Wrike documentation. So let's go to folders, to the call that we made previously. Grab the folder ID and paste it here. And also we need to pass via query strings events. This time we are going to use only attachment added. But on Wrike, you can configure a webhook to be triggered by multiple events. You can separate all of the events by comma. And we are going to pass our hook URL. To get that hook URL, we are going to go now to Citrix. We have here our integration. And let's go to edit, webhook listeners.
And Juan, what is a hook URL? What is that for?
That is like a endpoint you need to configure that to your webhook, and that is where the webhook will be redirecting the information. So you need to tell the webhook where to send the information you are requesting once the event is triggered.
Perfect. Thank you.
So let's add a new webhook. Right off the back, Citrix will auto generate a new URL. This first, give it a name. Let's call it new attachment added. And let's copy that URL and paste it on the webhook. Right now, we are good on creating the webhook. We can click send. And as you can see, the webhook was successfully created. But we are one step away. That is creating the other part, the part that is listening to this specific webhook. So let's continue here. Let's generate the tables. And I have here a sample of a response of the webhook. This will be like a response that the webhook will send to our endpoint. I'm using that to generate the tables. I'm going to give the table a name. Say webhook attachments. Let's click generate. We will give a primary key to the table.
So even though the string that you put in there to define the table, even though that was a value separated list, it still generated the table for you automatically, even though it was a responsive parameter value. The JSON string.
The JSON string, you have to copy that from a call, from a response from the webhook. You need to do like a test first, just to grab a sample response, just to generate the table. But you can do it manually if you want.
Oh, perfect.
So right now we are good. Just click add, and with that we have our webhook and our listener. Now the thing that we are missing is to test it. For example, let's say we are going to this specific task, and we'll attach a YouTube link. Let's add the video, and if everything works, let's go to the new created table, webhook attachment, and there you go. You have your new record.
Wow, that fast? No syncing?
No syncing. Where the way Citrix works is that it's listening, and if it receives a call from a webhook, it will auto populate the table you set it. So that is a very powerful tool to use. For this example, then you can use this data, for example, to trigger a notification or do something on a page, and we are going to also demo that. So right now we are going to go to my assigned task, we are going to configure a page.
So how do you tie the webhook data table to the data, that the endpoints that you're already syncing? Like, how do you consume that data aside from it being a standalone table?
Yeah, you have to build relationships between the table from the webhook and the table that you already have on your system of record. So let's do that first. We are going to go to relationships, and let's add a new relationship. We have assigned task as a primary table, and we are going to add our attachment table using the ID of the task. After that, we can create our page. Let's call it new attachment. It will be a detail page with the attachment and the task ID. Well, just task ID.
So you pick the webhook table as your detail page. So you do that so that when you're using that relationship, it can see the data. Is that why you pick the webhook table versus the assigned task table?
That is correct. You need to give the new page you have to specifically tell a relationship between a page and a table. And if I want that a notification to be able to go directly to a page, I need to use the same table as the page. So, for example, here I'm going to configure a quick page. We are going to set, I want the title of the task and the ID of the task. And I'm going to also include a button to go directly to Wrike, to see that specific task on Wrike.
And that's so you can actually look at attachments, et cetera, which wouldn't necessarily be in the micro app.
Yes, that is correct. So let's use that relationship that we built and insert a permalink. We have our page now, so everything left to do is build a notification. And we want that notification to be triggered by a new record, new attachment, a new record on our new page, webhook attachment. And we can say that we want to automatically run the event, and let's say new attachment to task. And let's insert the task ID. And we give it a target page. And let's say that notification will be for the user assigned to that task. And we save it. And that way, let me preview the page. When I send a I attach a new video, for example, to a task on Wrike, and that task is signed, it will populate the table, and the page will trigger a notification, the user will receive a notification, and this will be the page that the user sees and will go directly to that task on Wrike and see the new video that I just attached.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So you're actually leveraging deep linking. You're leveraging the ability to do webhooks so that you get this information right away rather than waiting for a sync to happen. So
yeah, that is the best part, that everything can occur at real time.
That's pretty good stuff. Juan, I can't thank you enough for helping us out and doing this demo for us. Really good work. So this is an example of leveraging with Wrike. For our next demonstration, we'd like to show you some of the real power of what you can do with webhooks and the cross system of record functionality that you can deploy with Workspace with Intelligence. So here we have a system of record that is called Celonis. It's a process mining technology. Very amazing elements that can be done here. But one of the key areas that this process mining technology kind of stands out in is that it's able to identify problem areas and get you in front of them as quickly as possible. So in this example, we're examining early payment discounts, the knowledge that you've negotiated early payment discounts in an accounts payable process, and this technology actually identifies that you're about to miss that target and miss that date. And when you miss that date, you miss that discount. So it's money lost. And so one of the things that we can do here in Celonis is that we can actually identify and create a skill in what they call the action engine. And in that skill, we can identify those payments that are due that are about to you're about to pass the due date, and go into it and actually generate a webhook. And this is kind of what we discussed before, that different systems of record have different ways of creating webhooks and basically defining them. And so with this technology, the definition of the webhook kind of goes out and grabs what type of request it's going to be, where it's going to go, the format of it, and exactly what you're going to send to that listener. And so on the Citrix side, we come in and we can create a listener for that webhook and define the table that goes with it, which was the JSON string that you saw, that I'm going to get these different elements. And then from that, I can actually now go create a page that listens to the webhook. So here's the webhook notification. And now I've also got a detail page associated to the webhook notification that actually allows me to release that invoice for payment. So another great example. And again, thank you so much for coming to our session.